This setup screen covers both the companies and contacts modules. So for every new record, either in companies or contacts, you can specify the label that you'd like to use for the custom fields that you have the options for throughout the system in every module. The next section is for warnings in relation to customers, where either A, they're not approved for credit, when their account is overdue, or when their credit limit is exceeded. Now, turning these options on, you'll have a red warning displaying, for example, on a customer screen or on the account screen for a customer. The next section covers accounts related defaults. Like for every supplier that you create in the system, they can default to a specific purchase tax code, or for every customer that you set up in the system, they default to a certain sales tax code. And you can change those tax codes at the supplier or customer level in their own records. The same with purchase nominal codes and sales nominal codes defaults. So these are just the defaults for creating records in the system, and then you can change those defaults for each company, customer or supplier record, or individual customer record as well. You can also specify that the default account name is to match the customer's account name. So an account is something that's automatically created in the system, whether a customer is an individual or a company or an organization. As soon as you create an invoice for a customer, an account is created for that customer. And you can change the account name per customer as well. But here you can specify just the default to match the customer's name. Here we've got some charge out related defaults. The charge rate per hour. So for example here we'd enter in the typical rate per hour we charge for example, if you create a job from a customer, that rate per hour that defaults on the customer screen, initially coming from here, but modifiable on the customer screen, it will then default for any job that you create related to that customer, where you can also change it at the job level. The charge rate per day is a default that when you're entering in employees into the system, it defaults their charge rate per day, just like their charge rate per hour. So for example then, if you use an employee as a resource on a job, you can then specify as a default what their rate is for that job for the day. You've also got an option for the default budget markup rate, and this is for using on jobs. In the jobs module, you can budget on any type of costs that relate to a job, like costs from an expense or a purchase order, and various other places in the system. But you can put in the default markup rate that you want to apply to budgets against those costs. So it then will reduce the customer's budget specific to that job based on the markup rate. The next option is relating to employees' holiday or leave, where you can put in a default holidays per month. So every employee that you set up then, on the leave tab or the holidays tab for that employee, you'd specify their start date, and then it will calculate how many holidays are due at any given time based on the usage or logging of holidays in the system for that employee. The next option over here relates to when you're selecting customers or companies throughout the system. So for example, the default is for filter view. So let's go back into the system and have a look at the quotes module. And we create a new quote. And if we then want to specify who the customer is on this quote, we click on specify company. And this is the filter view for when you select companies linking to a quote in this case, or it could be a PO or an invoice, for example. This is the quickest way of selecting companies on a transaction. You can filter up here, you can filter out by type as well. But there is another option in setup. So if we go back into setup, and we can also select companies using a find view. Now if you've got an enormous amount of records in the system, the find view may be a quicker way of selecting companies customers or suppliers on different transactions. Because instead of using a filter view, which sorts by company and allows you to filter out by, the letters of a company name, the find view is based on indexed information and uses a different method for finding records. So it's very, very rare that you might need to turn that on, but it's an option in here anyway. The next section is for the defaults for a credit account application. So when you're printing or emailing a credit account, you can specify whether you want to use your logo, the color logo, the black and white logo, or none, and also whether you want to use your company name or subheading on the credit account application that you're sending to your customer.